We're jumping straight into this fascinating stack of source material you sent over. We're looking at some really high stakes, career strategy, financial planning, and, well, what the data suggests is a time of pretty profound professional transformation.
That's right. We're really trying to dissect these insights today. Our mission, if you will, is to pull out the practical, actionable takeaways. We're kind of looking past the specific framing in the sources to understand the why behind these really ambitious strategies.
Ambitious is right. And a key theme seems to be this idea that for this profile, it's not just about having a job. The material says they merge with it.
They merge with it, exactly. They commit completely. That's
Yeah.
identified as the core asset.
Merging with the job.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds, that's a level of personal investment way beyond just collecting a paycheck, isn't it? It sounds, frankly, a bit exhausting, but maybe also incredibly effective. Can you unpack what the data means by merging?
Well, it implies that their greatest assets are things like their intensity, their focus, which is described as relentless, and a very strategic mind. The source material points to this unique ability, almost like X-ray vision, to see beneath the surface, uncover hidden truths, spot vulnerabilities others just don't see.
Okay, so that's where the power comes from.
That's the idea. You bring your entire self, your full psychological depth through whatever professional challenge you're facing.
Right, that sounds like a massive professional superpower. But it immediately makes me wonder, how do you separate that kind of all-in approach from just, well, chronic burnout? Where does the source material draw the line? Because relentless pursuit sounds dangerously close to unsustainable exhaustion.
That's the critical question, isn't it? It's the core tension. The data does suggest this profile is naturally resourceful, resilient, good at navigating complex stuff like office politics. They're almost drawn to the difficulty. But the line, according to the sources, seems to be drawn by the quality of the goal. Is the pursuit genuinely aligned with a meaningful purpose? If yes, the resilience tends to hold. If it's just chasing status or, shallow gains, then that same intensity can become destructive. The goal has to be truly worthy of that deep merge.
Got it. So the superpower isn't just the intensity itself, it's the depth of insight, and that dictates where it's best applied. The sources get really specific about careers. They list things where this depth is crucial. Finance, complex research, psychology, surgery, even detective work.
Exactly.
It seems connected to being drawn to life's mysteries,
Yeah.
right? Things needing deep investigation, resolution, transformation.
Precisely. It's less about the specific job title and more about the function. The sources are essentially describing the ultimate investigator or transformer role. The person you call when everyone else is stumped, when the truth is buried deep.
Whether that's forensic accounting or understanding human behavior patterns.
Doesn't matter the industry label. It's that depth of focus, that investigative intensity. That's the key application that gets results.
Apply that focus, get the results.
Yeah.
Okay. And speaking of focusing on what matters, if you're finding this deep dive useful and you want more insights like this, please do take a second to hit that like button. Let us know your own career insights in the comments. We'd love to hear them. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss our next analysis. All right, so we've talked about the how, that intense focus. Now let's get into the when. The source material flags a really significant timeline starting, it says, in late 2025. And it's not framed as just tweaking things or optimizing. The phrase used is deep foundational change.
Yeah, this is where we need to sort of decode some of the language and the sources. They attribute this period to a major shift related to what they call Pluto's influence. But stripping that back, the actionable insight for us, for you listening, is that this points to a time for a radical internal audit. It's bigger than just a new job title. It's about transforming the very bedrock of your professional life.
A radical internal audit. That still sounds pretty intense. What does the data suggest this actually looks like in practice? We can't just tell people, go find your soul's purpose. We need specifics.
Right. It means asking the really profound questions, the kind you often sidestep day to day. The mandate here is serious self-interrogation. Questions like, is this really the right line of work for me deep down? And crucially, does my home life, my inner world, actually support these big external ambitions? Because this kind of deep transformation means checking all the supporting structures. If you're going to be all in at work, the stuff outside work needs to be rock solid.
I really liked the analogy the source material used here. It explains the scale perfectly. It says, internal changes now have powerful external results later, like reinforcing the foundations of a skyscraper before you even think about adding more floors.
That's a great analogy.
If you skip that foundation work, any new floor, promotion, a new venture, whatever, it's just going to be unstable.
Yeah. It synthesizes the core message perfectly. It really underscores the need for a strategic look at, well, work-life balance, psychological well-being, all that stuff that ensures you can sustain this long term. Practically reinforcing that foundation might mean, say, investing in serious mentorship, maybe some deep psychological work, or even taking a structured sabbatical to really reevaluate before you push for the next big growth phase.
That makes total sense. If you're constantly merging with work, you have to be incredibly disciplined about that internal maintenance. You can't stay focused if your inner wiring is frayed. Okay, let's shift that laser focus now over to the money side. Because the financial approach described sounds just as intense. The data says this profile often operates on an all-or-nothing financial basis.
Indeed. It's quite a duality described there. On one side, you see incredible discipline in saving and investing. The sources say they're drawn to the power and leverage money provides. They're even described as a master strategist for long-term wealth creation. But, and it's a big but, there's also this clear tendency towards taking big but calculated risks. They're not just playing, they play to win big.
Master strategist, high risk. Okay, sounds like we need the planetary weather report here.
Yeah.
What are the influences on this strategy right now, according to the data?
Well, the sources highlight a major window of opportunity focused on shared resources. Things like loans, investments, what they label the Jupiter influence. It's described as a really potent time for leveraging growth. So that could mean actively clearing old high-interest debts, maybe, or entering into a profitable financial partnership with a spouse, maybe a business partner, pooling resources.
Okay, so that sounds like a green light for leverage then. Go sign the partnership papers, take out the big loan.
Hold on, not so fast. You know there's always another layer, right?
I do know that.
The data immediately brings in a counterforce, what they term the Uranus effect. And this brings unexpected, potentially disruptive energy to that exact same area of joint finances.
Oh, great.
So flexibility becomes absolutely critical. You need to be prepared for sudden, unforeseen shifts. In joint assets, maybe a shared business venture hits a snag. That kind of thing.
Wow. So one influence is pushing towards profitable partnerships, and another is basically warning about potential upheaval in those same partnerships. That's walking a tightrope.
It is, and this really emphasizes, the source material is very clear on this, the absolute non-negotiable need for a robust emergency fund, a solid one. If you're taking those big calculated risks or getting into complex financial agreements, that emergency fund is your safety net. It's your insurance against those sudden shocks the data warns about.
Okay, solid advice. Now let's connect this back to that strategic superpower. The data has a great personal tip here. Channel that inherent intensity into financial research. Basically, don't just follow the herd. Become a real expert in a specific area of investing that genuinely interests you.
Precisely. If you're going to take calculated risks, the emphasis has to be on calculated, and that means you need to become the deepest expert in the room on whatever you're doing. So yeah, channel that investigative nature. Become fluent in, I don't know, municipal bonds or a specific emerging tech sector, maybe complex real estate tax strategies, whatever it is.
The research itself lowers the risk.
It should, yes.
No.
But given those contradictory forces we just mentioned, seeking partnership while bracing for upheaval, the risk assessment here needs to be absolutely top tier and constantly reviewed. It's not set and forget.
That's a really practical application of the merge idea, isn't it? Merging your intellect with a complex financial sector. Okay, let's move to the final piece of this wealth-building puzzle, structuring creativity. Outside the main career path, the sources mention applying the Saturn factor to monetize a passion.
Right. This is all about bringing discipline to a creative talent or a hobby. Saturn, in this context, relates to structure, hard work, long-term building. So the message is pretty clear. If you have a creative pursuit, painting, coding, writing, cooking, whatever, this is the time to apply serious, almost rigid discipline to it.
Okay, so does that mean no more doing it just for fun on a whim? If you want to monetize it, the fun stops.
Well, maybe the reckless fun stops, yes, if monetization is the goal. The mandate is to think strategically about turning that passion into a viable income stream. But crucially, you have to approach it with a solid business plan. We're talking market analysis, budgets, realistic timelines, proper structure.
So it's structured risk, not just, throwing spaghetti at the wall hoping something sticks.
Exactly. It's not reckless gambling. The discipline itself is the mechanism for turning that hobby into a durable, potentially valuable asset.
That ties back beautifully to the listener's goal then. You take that intense focus we talked about, apply it methodically to building, say, a viable second income stream. And you build something reliable, durable, out of that passion, a structured creative outlet that actually supports the main skyscraper.
It's the ultimate application of all that foundational work we discussed. First, you reinforce the inner self through that deep audit. Then, you use disciplined effort to build these external structures, whether they're financial or creative, that genuinely reflect that internal strength and purpose.
So if we synthesize this whole journey, the core takeaway seems to be about harnessing this immense inner power, not just for controlling things externally, but for really profound self-directed transformation. It's about being maybe uncomfortably honest during that internal audit and then rebuilding your career from the inside out. So your professional life becomes a true, authentic reflection of who you are or who you're becoming.
Exactly. And if we circle back to that powerful skyscraper analogy one last time, it leaves us, and you listening, with a rather provocative thought to mull over. If that foundational internal change truly is the only stable basis for significant external results, what is the single most important internal structure? Maybe it's clarity of purpose for you, maybe it's psychological well-being, perhaps it's financial security. What's the one structure you need to reinforce right now before you even try to add more floors to your professional skyscraper?
That is definitely a question worth spending some serious time with. Thank you, as always, for unpacking all of this with us. And thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.